MPCS throughout the last few months has done a lot of thinking and trying to be responsive to the needs as we go forward in this new normal, and that would one of the key pieces to moving forward was how do we provide contactless compliance right out of the gate when you guys start. Well, we knew that MAPPrecaps was on the way and that we were about to release it, and our original plan was to release it in April, but there was no need. So we took some extra time to polish it even more and release it in June, just before everybody comes back online. Now, Map Logs is sort of the one thing that really would close that loop of contactless compliance for everyone, but that is a huge project for us, and it will take a good 5 to 6 months at least to get us where we need to be in order to release it, but that didn't work. So we had to come up with an interim idea, an interim plan, and that is called Map Scan. This is scheduled to be released in July. And in essence, what Map Scan will do for you as an organization is allow your drivers to scan in their logs wherever they are and push them into our system right out of the gate. So there needs to be no exchange between you or your people your boots on the ground and the drivers. MAPPrecaps we released yesterday, really over the weekend. But yesterday it became first active for some of you, and maybe some of you already had some experience with it. But before we dive in essence, it will allow your drivers to complete 7-day recaps digitally in Map primarily, and or on the web for those that do not have immediate access to a mobile device. So your drivers can do it on both. Well, but we didn't forget about the 3 to 7% of drivers who just shudder when they hear the word map, don't know why, and they want to insist on feather pen and ink to complete their a newspaper. So those drivers still can do that, and we haven't taken that opportunity away. We encourage, of course, to follow the concept of contactless compliance and see if they download Map and you make use of that. I think that would just make perfect sense. Okay. Logging in, I'm going to demo this from our staging environment. That makes it a little easier and we don't mess around with production. After logging in, I just want to point out for those that have not noticed or know this at this point, your dashboard here is flexible. By clicking on this little button on the right bottom part, you're going to be able to move your tiles into places and positions that you want them to be, and you can sort them at will. Just wanted to point that out for those that have not seen that yet. Okay, right out of the gate, you can see that we have added a new tab right here at the top. This is called the Recap tab, and it is something that will click on in just a second. In the meantime, we're going to go to Rainy Day. That is a fake show, and we are going to add a driver. Well, look at this. I'm adding myself as a driver today, and proud to say that I want to drive regulated at a 26,000 position. Here's what we've added new. Right out of the gate, you have the opportunity to put the driver's hire date if you know it. That will allow for the recap to be immediately generated and put into the system without you having to actually click on the tab that I just demoed or showed to you. So today being the 23rd, I'm going to add myself and follow the normal process of bringing this driver online on my driver status page. I click save. After clicking save, What it will do, obviously, it will add the driver to the driver status page. At the same time, by clicking on recap, you will notice that my name appeared right here, which means a recap, including the application that already went out, was placed into the system because I entered the driver's hire date there in the beginning where I pointed that out. Keep in mind, if you don't know yet a hire date, you can skip that hire date field, and then you will have to manually go to the recap tab and find the hire date later on and add the driver manually. Now you see two sections here. You see a section under which Oliver Palomares already is set as a driver. That is where all of your map drivers, your digital drivers, going to end up. Well, for those drivers who are insisting on feather pen and ink and paper, they will show up here. Just to kind of point to this little icon here, I'm going to hover over it so you can see what it says. Move to paper recaps. What that means is I can take this record and say, okay, the driver is standing right behind me. The driver says, oh my God, I forgot my phone in the car, and it's parked all the way over lot E. Can we just do it here? Sure, absolutely, you can do it here. So click on this icon, and it's going to ask you to make sure that this is what you want to do. Are you sure you want to move this recap to the paper flow? Yes, I do. Here you see I have added this driver into the paper flow, and I can just go ahead and move forward. If I am the admin, I would click here on select this driver and print the 7-day recap, let the driver complete it, hand it back to me. Then I will enter the hours here. Once all hours are entered, I can click save and then upload. The upload button will come after I saved it right here, and I can upload the recap. I mean, it's in principle the same way this has worked in our legacy system, so it shouldn't be very difficult. So step by step, you're being driven through the process. First, you enter the hours for the drivers. You can see here that says available hours, California 80. I hope all of you, most of you, or at least the DERs, have received an email from me last week that speaks about the 70 versus 80 hours in the state of California, and you have the option to leverage the 80 hours in the state of California and turn that flag on. And then your drivers, if the production is in the state of California, will have the option to have up to 80 hours in 8 days. So in this case, this show actually is marked as that, and we'll come back to that in just a little bit. If your driver, for instance, is somewhere on distant location and he or she is going to deliver something to you and they'll need to do a recap, you can email the recap to them right here, okay? In essence, the driver receives that email, they can print it out, they can fill it in, email it back to you, and in essence, then you're ready to complete this recap. Well, while all of this just happened, the driver mysteriously found his phone and goes, whoops, I got my phone. Can I do my recap on paper and on map now? Sure you can. Since we haven't done anything major here, this little icon now would be able to move the recap back into the map section. Well, doing this, and magic happens, and here the driver is back. All right, we're going to switch gears for a second. I'm going to stop sharing here. I'm going to switch to my phone. I will now broadcast from my phone. All right, so first what we're noticing right out of the gate for those people, that are familiar with the look or the dashboard in MAP, there's a little bit of a change and an update in terms of look. Our action tiles are slightly larger and the background has changed, and we're just kind of giving it a bit of a facelift. And also you notice there are bubbles, or notification bubbles, for those that are using mobile devices and or iOS devices, you should be fairly familiar with those. I can see there's a new tile here that says hours of service, and that there are 2 items that are pending. And so I best click on on this tile to see what's going on. By clicking on it, I see that we have 2 recaps apparently in the queue. You also see map logs on the right-hand side, and you see that this is grayed out because we are not ready to release this until the end of Q4, as mentioned earlier. Also, there will be a 3rd tile coming soon that is going to be saying map scan. Not to repeat myself, but for those that are joining late, this will be sort of semi-closing the loop for contactless compliance until we are ready to release map logs, allowing for your drivers to not have to hand papers back and forward between you and your boots on the ground. Alrighty, click on MAPPrecaps, and like the queue in MAPPlications, you see a queue of recaps. There's a recap from 6/22 here, and there is a recap from 6/23, which is today's recap that we have created. I'm going to click on the recap of 6/23, and right out of the gate, I have a question that is the 70 or 80 question. Now, even though that the show might have a flag of 80 if the production is in California, meaning the driver can have 80 hours in 8 days versus 70 hours in 8 days. And that is based on your choice that you've made for your productions. Are you in the state of California? And that would be yes. Have you traveled into California with the 14-11-10, meaning the interstate rule, within the last 8 days? That's an important question. Why? Because if they have traveled into California with the interstate rule in the last 8 days, they would have to remain for 8 days on a federal rule, and then the 70 hours would only in 8 days would only apply. So in this case, we're going to say no. And well, there's another question. It says, are you leaving California today? And again, that plays into whether that's going to be 70 or 80 in terms of our calculations in terms of available hours. No, we're not leaving California today. Beautiful. Now the next button just lit up and I can go click next. So what it says, based on the answers that we just gave, I am permitted to operate on the 80 hours in 8 days rule. Fantastic. If I, by chance, made a mistake or don't like it, I can click the review button, go back, change my answers, and then come back to continue. So we're not locking anybody in or preventing issues from actually getting into the system. All right. Alrighty, I'm going to click continue. So here is the next question. The question here is, did you work within the last 24 hours? Well, yes, we're going to say yes, because that way we can see what happens and how the system walks the driver through. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fields that need to be completed. Well, really just 3, and the rest gets pre-filled. I will explain. So we're asking the driver, well, you did say you worked in the last 24 hours. What was your wrap time on your last shift there? And we're going to say the wrap time is at 10 p.m. So here are there are sliders on the bottom. It'll make it easier for the driver to select drivers instead of having to type in manually. So I'm going to move myself to 10, leave, and the minutes go in 15-minute increments. Before I can move forward, I have to determine whether that's AM or PM. And in this case, it is PM. I highlight PM and see how the done button now lit up. All right, done. Beautiful. I marked myself that I got wrapped out at 10 p.m. And I click on rule type and open up a list of rules what rule was I under? And I'm going to go with the motion picture exemption rule. Here we are. So now who did I work for? You can see it's there are suggestions that are coming up. I was working on Blue Bloods season 10. I select that and notice that the studio.go and the supervisor already are being pre-filled because that is what we have in the system. So the driver really doesn't need to do much more. Beautiful. All right. So I said 10 p.m. was my wrap time on the motion picture exemption for the show or the division Blue Blood, and the .go is CBS Studios, and the supervisor's name is user5d3 test. That is a very unusual name. All right, I click next. And at this point, I'm going to have to give a call time. My call time for today would be 5 a.m. So I'm going to slide the slider to 5, click AM, and say done. And what rule will you be working on? And that would be motion picture, right? And click next. Uh-oh, what is this? It says, based on your previous shift's wrap time, today's call time, and the selected hours of service operating rule, you are at risk to violate. Please contact your supervisor ASAP. So if you think about it, it was 10 p.m. and I'm coming back at 5 a.m. That's less than 8 hours. And as such, the likelihood that this driver will violate is high, right? But just selecting these times doesn't mean this is an immediate violation. If the driver moves forward with continue, and after the driver certifies the recap by signing it, you will, as a DER, get an email stating that this driver on this division, on this date, may be at risk of violating due to turnaround issues. And then you can immediately do what you need to do in order to remediate the situation, if that makes sense. So we're leaving nobody out of the loop. We're not just telling the driver, but we're also letting you guys know, hey, whoops, there might be an issue, be careful. Let me go back because I'm like, I definitely made a mistake. So I'm gonna go and pick 6 a.m., okay? But I'm gonna change the rule to California intrastate because boy, I sure was wrong. So I click next. Oh boy, there is also a turnaround violation. Why? Because when you switch from the motion picture to the California intrastate, because you needed a 10-hour turnaround. All right, I'm gonna make a change. I'm gonna go back to the motion picture. I just wanted to kind of demo that the system catches all of those kind of possibilities or violations or possible violations. All right, I click next. Oh, looky here, how pretty. Well, let's start looking. This is your sort of your 7-day recap entry form right here. Let me just talk about the columns real quick. There's a date column, an on-duty hours column, and a source column. The source column is sort of something new that we are highlighting because we are pre-filling the on-duty hours for the driver based on a particular hierarchy and records that we have in our system. There are time records. Oh, let me start on the bottom here. On 6/16, another recap that had 0 hours completed by the drivers, and we're taking those hours and bringing them forward into this recap, right? On the 17th, right above, 6 hours, 6.5 hours comes from a log. And then on 6/18, also from a log, but it says 0 hours, so likely an off-duty log. And then on the 19th, it says 10.5 hours, also from a log. Then there's 2 days where we have 0 data, and the driver will have to enter that data and give us what the duty hours were for that day. And jumping up right to the 22nd, where it says 14 hours, and it says time records. And you're going, well, what does time record mean? Well, for you, it means this is captain's report, a captain's report record. And because it's been less than 3 days, and the log may already be with us, but we have not been able to audit the log because we have 72 hours to manage to audit and administer your driver's logs. All we have on record is your captain's report that you've entered. And from call to wrap time, that were 14 hours. And since the captain's report does not know you off the driver's off-duty time, it will record it as 14 hours. Now, so the driver goes, now, hey, that is not correct. I have a yellow copy of my log right here, and it says, 5 hours. So the driver taps into the field and can change every single field that's pre-filled, because the driver is the original source, and the driver has and should have full control of what he or she submits to their new employer. Notice how the source disappeared, because it's no longer the captain's report from which we are basing that number from, but it's direct entry by the driver. Now on the 21st, we need to put some hours in there as well. Leaving the field empty alone will not light up your next button on the bottom here. See, everything is filled except 2 days, and you think, well, it's 0 hours, I can leave it empty. Nope, the driver will have to state that those were 0 hours. So again, I click in the field and I see 0 hours, and then click done. I'm going to, just for shits and giggles real quick, enter 23 hours. Okay, well, it's not 24, because I know it's wrong, but I just want to show what happens. Here at the bottom, you can see, because I've now excessively entered hours just for demo purposes, it tells the driver that they have 0 hours available. It's actually probably more in the negative, but it doesn't work that way. So in this case, it says 0 hours available. And if I were to click next, it goes, hey, you're out of hours. Based on the total of on-duty hours, it appears that you are out of hours. Please alert your direct supervisor for instructions. Like with the previous notification, once he does move forward and signs the recap, there will be a notification that will go out directly and immediately to you to tell you what the situation is. Now, is it possible that this driver might just be making a mistake? Sure, but under any circumstance, we thought of possibly every scenario, and I don't want to go through the list of scenarios where this could be happening. At this point, the driver would likely is going to go, oh, I made a mistake, and goes back to review the information here and go back, make that adjustment. All right, here's another scenario. Total on-duty hours. Now it says available hours today, 6. The alert here is called at risk. So we're not saying this driver is out of hours, but we're saying his total on-duty hours for you on that shift cannot exceed 6 hours, right? And he is at risk of running out. And of course, we know that this can be managed. So the driver could technically move forward. I just wanted you to see what that looks like. Perfect. I'm going to reduce those hours again so that we have that this driver has now 14 hours of available hours for this shift that he's signing up. Okay, you just saw a big O in the signature field. This is something that if the driver, and once the driver has signed a recap once and put a signature in there, that signature will always appear to the driver, so they don't have to re-sign it each time. It just makes it, like DocuSign, quicker and easier to move forward. But because we're having a good time today, I'd love to sign it myself. All right, submit, and you are done, meaning the driver is done. Now this took much longer because I took time to explain, went back and forward, but in average, that takes 1.5 minutes to complete. I'm going to click the return to portal, and all I see is now that one recap that was from yesterday, and I'm going to leave it be for the time being. All right, switching back to my screen. Let me refresh this page. When we left a minute ago, Oliver Palomares here had an uncompleted or a pending recap. I'm going to refresh the page real quick and go back to recap. All right, now you can see, first of all, there's a bunch of numbers in here, and you didn't have to do anything, by the way. Remember, this recap that you've entered either by virtue of the hire field in the onboarding on your driver status page process, or manually adding the driver here to the recap page. The driver will have a notification in their queue if it's on this, if the hire date is the same day you're putting it on, immediately. If it's for tomorrow at 12:01 a.m. in their time zone, that recap will be visible to them. And at 6 a.m. of that day, they will actually get a notification through MAP on their phone saying, hey friend, you have a recap in MAP. So it tells you as the user that this driver has 14 hours available for that day. That green lock means it's complete, it's locked, it's good to go. And here you can actually see the recap. You may also notice that we redesigned it just slightly. This is just to make it visually more appealing and give it a bit of a facelift compared to what we've had in the past. The last thing I want to show is that there is actually a third section, and that's called Other Divisions. I'm going to go to hire date 6/17 real quick. And on 6/17, I'm going to add the driver to the recap section here. There's a view button here and says, oh, wait a minute. What is this? Click on here and you see, oh, that is already an existing 7-day recap for this driver. Oh, that's good. So I guess I don't have to do it. Fantastic. Oh, looky here. Yes. Because another division for that day, the driver already completed a 7-day recap. And because the 7-day recap is .go based, not division based, because it belongs to the DOT number, not the division. So on this day, I have 67.5 hours available. And again, I can one more time click on the view, same way we just did a second earlier. So you have 3 possible sections: paper, map, and other divisions. Now, why would that happen? This is a driver, water truck driver, car carrier, etc. Someone that could possibly work on multiple divisions in one shift. So here on the driver status page, when we are adding a driver to the system, you have the ability to set a hire date 5 days into the future, not more. So you can go up to 5 days forward, and you can go up to 30 days backwards from today's calendar date. So we thank you very much for all of your input, not just only today, but in previous years. And we're very, very proud of our recap system the way it is today, as we dubbed it MAPPrecaps.